Welcome to the Creative AI Show. What do we have this week, Brian?
Hey Rosh, happy to be here. We are two creative guys talking AI. And to be honest with you, Rosh, it's been a little bit of a tougher week. And I'll get into that a little bit, but I want to explain just I've turned to ChatGPT just for my normal life and for handling different things a lot more than usual. And I'm realizing that it's really becoming an extension of how things get handled in my life. So
Sure.
I want to go down that rabbit hole a little bit. And then also, I'm getting to the point on some of these programs that we use where I'm either running out of credits or I'm kind of hitting the end of the road with the output I can get from the specific program.
Sure.
And I've turned to those programs competitors. And I've used my favorite LLMs to be like, all right, hey, I'm at the end of the road here. Give me five competitors that do something similar, and talk about the pay structure, different things, and see if I can maybe get a free sample on one. And I've come up with some pretty good answers that I wouldn't mind talking to our audience about.
Okay, good. Good, good.
Yeah, what do you have going on?
So, OpenAI released Codex, and that's
Okay.
worth chatting about, and some other alternatives. Speaking of competition, there's a few
Okay.
ways you can go about this, but this is the future of this world of creative coding. And also, I want to talk about Reframe, Luma Labs Reframe,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as we can talk a little Kling too, and how they're really starting to develop the kind of the just the ability to use multiple references to change
Mm.
that clip to exactly what you want. Making a horizontal clip vertical and taking things in and out easy as pie. So I'm going to dig into that.
Yeah, that's kind of where Runway and Pico was good for a while. And while, Kling always gave great outputs, they didn't have as many options in that way. So I'm definitely excited to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, as you know, Kling has become a favorite of mine. So that's cool. So, yeah, I know you did one on the multiple references earlier this week on our YouTube channel. So that was looking
Hmm.
really good. So, but yeah, all right. So a little bit of a tougher week. Not to get into too many details here or anything, but my father-in-law is recovering from surgery, and there's been some steps forward and some steps backwards, and to kind of have ChatGPT as a little doctor in my pocket to kind of give me
Yeah.
updates and walk you off the edge of the ledge there if you think things are looking dire, or to kind of give you some perspective on things. It's been really really helpful, and one of the things that when I do a speaking event, I talk about my father, my own dad's surgery, a year and a few months ago,
Right.
where I was 600 miles away, and just getting a cell phone picture of, say, his charts, show
Yeah.
his heart rate, show all of his stats, and to be able to have it analyze that image and give me the updates. So I've been kind of doing something similar there with my father-in-law as we, kind of move backwards and forwards. And, it's been really helpful. It's been a great resource to have in my pocket. And I've realized in this past week, and I looked before I popped on the show here today, I just looked at my search history this past week, and it's like I'm using it 15 to 25 times a day
Oh,
for different things across the board. It's just become part of regular, a regular everyday life. I was in the backyard walking around with my 4-year-old the other day, and we saw something in the pond that was growing, and he's like, ask your pocket friend what that is. So I'm like, I
pocket
love that
friend.
it's my pocket friend. But to my 4-year-old, he just sees it as something that, I open up my ChatGPT app, I'll turn in, the two-way conversation, and I'll turn on the
Yeah.
camera. So it's a lot like what we talked about in our show last week with the AI glasses. And,
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking through my phone as though they're AI glasses and getting the information. And, when a 4-year-old's even noticing the value of this tool, that we don't have an answer in a certain situation, and he's already starting to get programmed to where it's like, hey, we've got a tool for this. We've got the answer right away. And I was like, you know what? That's not a bad idea, buddy. We
Right.
might use that. And there was one night where I wasn't planning on making dinner, but it was obvious that I was going to be making dinner, which these nights happen. Um, it's not a big deal because what's cool is I knew basically what we had in the fridge. I took, the majority of the spices that I was thinking about using, and I laid them all out in the spice pantry in a very visible way. And I pretty much started the conversation with the ChatGPT, bot, the look through feature, where I was like, hey, I've got these skinless, boneless chicken thighs, approximately this many of them. I want to, I would like to make an Indian inspired dish. I knew that we had a certain spice called garam masala, which I typically don't cook with. and it's,
Okay.
a very different kind of seasoning. And it gave me step by step one of those dishes that, at the end of cooking where you get the little nudge from your better half and she's like, hey, save this recipe. And it was just like, it was just that. It was, save this recipe. And, I did a video about this one on Saturday, and just how cool it was to be able just to have it visually look through and be like, all right, here's what we're working with. Do 2 parts the garam masala, 1 part cumin, onion, garlic powder, threw in step by step as it was talking to me. And it's like, it's one thing if it was just a quick conversation and I'm like scrambling to get all the ingredients. But what's great about when you do the chat feature on ChatGPT is you then can go back and look at the conversation and then actually talk to it like and have it continue the conversation. So then I had it do, the full recipe, the full procedure to lay everything down there, and it was great. It was a really good meal, and I ended up turning to it on Sunday for another one. And then also, I'm was starting to put together the pool. In Michigan, it's starting to get nice, and I always forget the procedure for how to turn on the sand filter the right way to not blow the thing up. And just again, I pulled it out and looked at it and was like, hey, here's my sand filter. Here's my pump. What do I put it on backwash first? Do I put it on flush? Do I put it on filter? What mode do I put it on so that way I'm not dry running it or I'm not messing anything up? And again, it stepped right in there, got me step by step what I needed. And again, it's a week where I'm wearing a lot of hats, I'm doing a lot of different things. And instead of feeling stressed about not being able to figure anything out, having my good old pocket buddy there to help me along the way.
I don't know.
What are
I'm tempted to title the show "My Little Pocket Buddy," but
but
I
that
just have
that
a
might go down a
feeling
weird direction.
it's just that would be the last show.
That might be it. It might get us kicked off YouTube at
Yeah.
least. Oh my! But what are some of the different directions there? I know you use that a good amount where you're
Oh,
talking back
absolutely.
and
And
forth.
all
Well,
over the place. I mean, just
yeah.
for, helping me do research when I'm speaking,
Hmm.
look maybe around the yard, like you've said.
Hmm.
How do I fix this? What do I do with that? And then tons of coding, and
Coding. Okay.
figuring out things and really researching. And I dug deep over the weekend because I had some serious questions I needed answers to as it terms in terms of what kind of data I needed for certain projects, and we really dug in deep, and it really gave me some great ideas and things that I had not thought of, and
Hmm.
that it was worth just every second. It was amazing,
Yeah.
and it's just they just keep getting better. I guess the point being, I'm using O3 now and on a regular basis, and it's amazing the kind of quality information I can get out of it.
Right. And it's interaction, it's back and forth, it's problem solving.
Yep.
Now, O3 is still giving you kind of step by step how it's thinking, right? It's going down
Oh
that
yeah.
rabbit hole. Yeah.
Absolutely. Not as deep as say a deep seek who will really
Okay.
lay it all out there for
Okay.
you. But yeah, it's a one of the it's the next version of O1, the
Right.
deep thinking model. Here's O3, shows you some of the deep thinking, and you can see some of it. You can see, okay, the user has asked for this, and I need to look for that. And the thing is, it uses tools and it goes out on the web.
Yeah.
Maybe using tools is a little dramatic, but it goes out on the web and really gets the information and figures things out. So, yeah, I'm impressed, and I know it's just going to keep getting better.
Well, speaking of OpenAI, can keep getting better. You've got OpenAI, easy for me to say, has
Yeah.
Codex. Tell us a bit
Codex.
about that.
Yeah, so I can't share too much other than it has been released. It's some of the biggest AI platforms. Most valuable ones have been like Cursor and Lovable.dev, where people can code and output their stuff, and it's designed to help people who really are not coders. Well,
That's
Codex is really
that would be
designed
me.
for, yeah. Codex is really designed for software engineers though. And
Okay.
and so yeah, you can go in there. You if you're not too familiar with the code, you might really want to go to like a Lovable or Cursor or some of the other ones.
Mm.
I haven't gotten too deep into it because basically it made me go through a QR code process to get in because I had it available. I saw it announced, and it was about 2 hours later there it was, and it popped up this QR code, and I tried one. It just wasn't working. So I'm hoping that has been all cleared up. So unfortunately, at this point, I haven't gotten my paws into it, but I really do like using straight up O1, even when they open up their, the frames. What is that called now? Where they open up the little
The chat
window.
window, the Canva.
Canva, yeah. When it opens up Canva, I tell it to shut it off. I don't even
Hmm.
like that. I like just the straight up, back and forth talk. The Canva actually quite often fails for
Hmm.
me. It'll go through half the code and stop. And and so that's just not,
I quit. I'm done.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, another thing that's been released that wasn't before is the 4.1. I don't know. Have you seen that available for you?
No, I have not,
It's
but
it's
let me
actually good
check
for
in real
coding.
time here.
I used it as an API for some of my projects, and because it wasn't available as an
Yeah,
option.
4.1. Yeah.
Yeah, so they released that now to be able to work. It's one worthy of working with, and I would encourage
Okay.
you to see if you can work with it, because it's a solid model. But there's so many of them, and as we know, OpenAI is going to gradually just pull it all together, and that may be 5.0. Who knows?
The
That
Pinnacle
infamous
5, yeah,
5.0.
that we're waiting on. Because,
Yeah,
yeah, we both were unimpressed with 4.5. We actually kind of both went away
yeah,
from it and we're just like, no, this is
yeah,
struggling.
yeah.
It's trying too hard. Right.
Yeah, well, it just wasn't the right thing. So anyway, all right,
So, well,
back to
anyway,
you.
if you hit something that's not quite the right thing, good transition here. Sometimes with each of these programs that we use, we kind of hit a limit of the output,
Yeah,
or it's only as good as it's going to get. And an example of this is, as much as I love Captions AI, and it's the talking videos, so where you upload a script and you actually get
yep,
one of the avatars, one of the characters, not avatars, they're actual people that have
right.
recorded, a decent amount in order to capture their mannerisms and stuff. And, it still gets me 80, 85% of the way there, but sometimes the speech isn't natural enough, or, it's too glitchy in between thoughts and different things like that. And it's like, what are you going to do if you've, promised something like this to your client? And, you're getting an output that's good, but not great. And it's, if there's a program that's out doing something like what Captions AI is doing, know that there's 4 or 5 competitors that are
Yeah,
nipping at its heels that might be better in these situations. So this was a time where I kind of ran out of the different characters I wanted to use in captions. So I was like, you know what? Let's check out Synthesia, see what that one has going on. And it's another one that you got to subscribe for. And I noticed it takes a good amount more processing power. Why? Because it did crash my computer once, but that's fine. We were able to recover. We were good to go. I had to give it a little less output, but it's using, different processing power. But you get a whole new slew of AI, characters to choose from, and
hmm,
some different options and different customability things that where, captions didn't have it. So, just because a specific AI program, and this is more talking on an overall, kind of umbrella view to the creative entrepreneur, anyone that's listening, is just because your LLM or your program or anything isn't working for you in that way doesn't mean it's not a bad time to go over and try one of its competitors.
hmm,
And that's one of my favorite questions to ask ChatGPT is like, hey, this program does this, give me 5 of its competitors, and start with the freest one, or at least one that costs the least, and it'll try to do all of that. So it's just like the same thing of going from ChatGPT over to Gemini or maybe over to Grok and see how that does. Or, if you're struggling with Pika and not getting a specific output, you pop on over to Kling. So it's like there's these close competitor programs that do mostly the same thing. But if one of them's getting you 85% of the way in a certain situation, it doesn't mean that, it's not a good time to go shift gears and try another one. And that might get you 95% of the way. And, going back and forth, having 2, 3, 5 resources for each specific task is something that the creative AI director going forward is
yep,
really going to have to know. You can't just be a jack of, one trade and be like, yes, I'm a chat GPT specialist. It's no, you need to be familiar with all these platforms across the board and where their strengths and where their weaknesses are. We've talked till we're blue in the face about the different image to video ones where some of them, are really good at directing the camera, whereas some of them are really good at being a director to tell the character in the scene what to do.
right.
And yeah, so when you feel like you're hitting a wall and you're just not getting the output you're looking for, shift gears
Yeah.
and ask your favorite LLM, which direction to go to. Are there any close competitors you can, kind of think of where you bounce back and forth?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, I use Claude and all
Hmm.
often for when I want to be more creative, I go to Claude.
Okay.
That includes coding as well. Writing, I pretty much all writing I do over on Claude.
Hmm.
Research wise, I like ChatGPT and
Hmm.
3.0. I like the interaction with Gemini. I do like that in terms of the video and the eye and the looking around. But I also do that a lot with ChatGPT too. So
Hmm.
back and forth. So yes, and then of course in the video world and so forth, I bounce back and forth, between Kling and Pika and so forth. And I try to remember some of the other folks, like
Right.
Luma Labs, Dream Machine, which is
Hmm.
excellent. It just takes a long time, and that's why I often,
Yeah.
fade away from it. But there are many others. I mean, there's a whole list of and ones that we're not even talking about on a regular basis because they're open source, meaning you go over to GitHub and you download it and you run it on your computer, but nobody's really talking about it that much because it's not
Right.
web based. And I
Yeah.
just
The
happen to
web-based
prefer the
ones are
web
a
based.
little, yeah, they're just a little more easy to use and a little easier for us to kind of talk about in the context of this show for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but speaking of those programs, Reframe has been
Yeah.
good for you. What's going on?
Yeah. So Lumen Labs, they launched Reframe, which is exactly what you think it is. It's if you have a horizontal video and you want to make it vertical, it will reframe it and add. And it's not too
Oh,
bad. I mean, some stuff it's kind of guessing here and there but ultimately I was really impressed. You would take elements of the photo and expand it nicely.
yeah.
I ultimately was impressed. Some people weren't as impressed as I was, but I felt it really did a good job considering, especially depending on the amount of data you have to expand. You can say,
Have you done this before on Runway?
I have not done it. I think maybe we did it a little bit. Was it
Yeah.
a couple months ago? Something.
Yeah, Runway's had this one for a
Yeah.
while, and I've done different band clips and stuff, and
Yeah.
to the point where I did one from a show, and it was a horizontal one. I wanted to make it vertical,
Yep.
and it saw that during this concert show that my band had that there were lights kind of happening,
Yep.
and it actually invented the lights up on the
Yeah.
ceiling and kind
Right.
of pointed
Yeah.
them in the right way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of impressive that it's using its brain to expand it. So if Reframe's kind of doing that same thing, I know Luma
Absolutely.
Labs is pretty strong, so it's probably a pretty good performer in that way.
And it is, and I was really impressed. And also, Kling added and has the easy add and remove in the editing feature. So if you go into
Hmm.
the editor, you can easily add and remove. I took off headphones off of a model,
Hmm.
and she looked great. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, it had to make up the ear, but it worked out reasonably well. And then
Right.
you can do it by in painting, but there's also you can take a section like a square or so forth. So there are a few ways in which you can use the add or remove element. And of course, you can talk to the AI and say, hey, put some text in there, do this or do that if you
That's
really
cool.
want to focus. So, those both of those were nice little additions to the platforms over the last week or so. And I thought they did a really nice job. I was impressed with Kling, with
Hmm.
their editors. It's kind of like their editor kind of slowly appeared. I think it was there, but hidden
It's never
somewhere.
a
And now
feature,
it's,
right? Yeah.
yeah, now they're slowly adding better features to it. So it's more of a viable editor where people won't open up and say, oh, well, what's this? I can't do anything with this, but
Yeah.
you can, and it's getting better. So it's someplace I would go. I was actually having a conversation, more of a practical, real world conversation. I was talking with some Google folks in New York, and they were talking about how one of my clients, was using had all horizontal video to use for one of the campaigns, and they said, for what we want to do here, you're trying to do, you probably want more vertical
Yeah.
because of the way it's being used and what the people are looking at. And I think, oh, it's like, do they have vertical video? Not really. They're like, can you make vertical videos? I said, absolutely. And
Right.
I had a
Isn't it
have a
nice to have
tool.
those solutions? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool to have an answer like that and just
Yeah. So
things that
that's a
before.
real world marketing scenario where it is important.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I know you mentioned the multiple references there at Kling. So what's that? You're uploading with Kling, uploading multiple things, right, to be able to reference?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, That well, was that this week or last week? No, I had two parts. I had the reframe and then the easy edit, add and remove.
Ah, the editing. Okay, okay,
Yeah, that
understood.
was the second part. But yeah, no, we have done some tests recently on YouTube in terms of the different references. Oh yeah, I did Kling versus Sky Reels,
Yes, yeah, that one just came out
that
recently.
yeah. So I compared those in terms of multiple reference, and honestly, they were about the same. They're about
Okay.
the same. Maybe Kling was a little bit better, but it wasn't too far off. So.
Yeah, Skyreel's impressed me the few times I've played with it. I should actually go back to that one a little more, but I use up my free monthly credits pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, Sky Reels, they I think they slowly rolled out or quietly rolled out version two. And
Okay.
so that's why I had to look. It's like version two. When did that come out? And it looks like that's been out for maybe a month, 6 weeks, based on what I recall. And yeah, it's pretty good. So it's better than the imagery and the stuff that we were doing just a few months ago. I was having a conversation with somebody today, and it's like, what should I use? It was the question. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
today, this is what you want to use.
We'll
A
see what's
month from
better
now,
tomorrow.
I have no idea because a month ago, the world was completely different. It's going to be a different tomorrow, too.
Yeah. Well, and that's our job here on the show, try to keep you guys up to date and we'll keep our ear to the grindstone to listen, with these different updates as they come out. And yeah, if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe and we are until next week, we're two creative guys talking AI.
Talk to you next week.